Brilliant. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll now call to order a continued meeting from our November 19th regular meeting. And before we begin, we're going to get right into business, but I just want to tell you, I've been accused of watching too much television. I did watch a fair amount of coverage today of the funeral of George H.W. Bush, and whatever anyone thinks or political side, it was nice to see our country's leaders all together. And I hope with the agenda we've got, both short-term and long-term, we can also emulate and perhaps even be better than those who are serving us in Washington. So I hope we've got a big meeting tonight, including our goals, which I'm going to read aloud shortly. There won't be any discussion on goals tonight, but I'm going to read them for the benefit of the audience as well as those who are watching on video. We'll get right into our meeting. We have two public hearings that have been duly advertised. One is an ordinance to allow the council to invest, Mr. Norbeck, in the Virginia Association of Counties and Virginia Municipal League investment pool.
This is a document that logically would have also been adopted at the same time that you guys made a decision for that $1 million at the last council meeting, but because it is an ordinance, we had an advertising requirement, and so we put it on tonight's agenda, and it has been advertised for public hearing, and it's an ordinance as we would any other, and so as a matter of housekeeping, this is the ordinance that.
Is anyone here tonight, and this basically involves the council made a decision at the last meeting to invest $1 million into this pool. We also got quotes from local banks, and it was determined that the rate offered by the investment pool at this time is higher. It's variable. And I believe Mr. Nash's motion called for if the interest rate were to dip below the highest bid from a local bank, the town would pull those funds, which it's allowed to do.
It is. It's a liquid fund, and we'll go back to the local banks and see if they'll still honor those
bids. Right. Anyone to speak for or against the ordinance? It's housekeeping. Don't see or hear anybody. The only question I had is, why are Chesapeake and City of Roanoke specifically named?
Because they created this pool.
They're the creators, because we're in with a whole bunch of other localities.
Yes, I think if you read it, it says.
I saw that later.
Provided in their trust agreement for participation by other eligible governmental entities that execute a trust joint agreement.
Okay, very good.
What was the exact percentage that's current that we got last? What was the figure, just so people will know what our interest rate?
2.89%.
2.89.
Okay, and the high bid from the local banks was 2.60, I believe.
A 3-year CD was the highest CD rate that we received with a 3-year, and that was Simmons Bank at 2.6.
Okay. Hearing no comments from the public, I'll close the public hearing. Members of council, what's your pleasure?
Move to approve the ordinance for the Baco VML investment pool as presented.
I second.
Ms. Hasbrook is second and Mr. Nash's motion. Due to the nature of the funds involved, I'll ask for a roll call vote. Are we going, it's December, so whose turn is it in December? Is it Ms. Jones' turn? Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Aye. Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
One question, do we have to, say if we go find another meeting, or save another meeting, we don't find it, we save it. Do we have to have another ordinance? Or do
No, this only authorizes participation.
Okay,
So no, we don't have to do
so
it.
now that's done, we don't have to file another ordinance and.
No, I don't believe we have to do another ordinance, but I would like, if you would, that there's a joinder and a trust agreement attached. And if your motion could also state not only approving the ordinance, but authorizing the
Signing of the documents, which I
mayor
have
to
here.
execute the documents.
So amend that, and that's fine. Common consent. Very well. Your next public hearing, Mr. Van Norbeck, is a public hearing on an alleyway abandonment along Academy Avenue.
I think Wayman has.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Mitchell.
Well, moving those around, you get penalized for moving them?
No, sir, not for this one, that's why, yeah.
There's no penalty for early withdrawal.
So they're 2.4, we agree now, and if you find one that's 5%, you can pull it out.
Correct.
That's what we've been told. Whereas at the bank had a really good offer where there was no penalty. You could withdraw, but there was a penalty on interest, not principal.
Right, okay.
Right, right. But good question, good question. Next, we have a request to abandon an alleyway on Academy Avenue. Mr. Van Norbeck.
We have a request here for an ordinance of vacation, and I will say that time is of the essence on the property. The property in question, you see a legal description in the ordinance of vacation is prepared by the seller's attorney. It's owned by Fuqua Bridgman. If you guys remember Fuqua who passed, she had a home on Academy Avenue. The original subdivision plat of West Blackstone, of which this was a part, showed an alleyway that ran through what is now the middle of the property approximately, okay? I think there's even a garage built on it. So when time came for closing for the sale of the property from the Bridgman family to a potential buyer, this issue came up. And Ken Walden could not find, who's representing the buyer, could not find in his title search a recorded ordinance of vacation. There is an alley shown in the original West Blackstone plat, but the current tax maps don't show one.
So it was vacated at some point, but we
At some
don't,
point, we couldn't find it in the minutes, and Ken didn't
Wasn't
find one
recorded.
recorded. So in order for the sale to go through, the buyers would like title to be resolved. And I can't say that it hasn't been done, we just couldn't find it. We looked and looked, and Ken didn't find it at the courthouse. So the Bridgman family has made the application, you know, in I can't say in writing, but verbally when they came to the office. And again, it's not shown on the tax maps. I think something was done. We just can't find the track. And this should be from back in about 1943 or 44.
all right, very well, we'll go into public hearing. Anyone tonight to speak for or against this request? Hearing and seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Members of council, what is your pleasure?
To approve of the vacation of the portion that is being asked by on the Bridgman property.
Second.
Mr. Miller has seconded the motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Next, we have a biennial memorandum of understanding with the Virginia Main Street Program. It's fairly boilerplate, I believe.
I think it is, and I don't think it commits you to dollar figures, but it does commit you to support DBI. And it does have, you know, certain points and
Yeah.
that sort of thing. The reason I asked Zach to let us come to council, because it does commit you guys in support of DBI. It doesn't give you a dollar figure, it doesn't say a specific amount, but it does say that you financially support.
What does the town provide, roughly what is the town's allocation to DBI annually right now? 30, 39? At one time, it was 65 or 70, I want to say.
I believe 60, yeah.
Okay. Members of council, what is your pleasure?
What's the agreement for, just out of curiosity? I mean, how long?
It's mostly a document that outlines what EDI is supposed to do with BMS, but town partnerships have to be with Virginia Main Street Community, so it's a declaration of support.
How long is it?
Dollar figures,
2 years. It's a two-year document, is it not?
renew them every 2 years.
So that does include, I know a few years ago, it was an extensive project, doing work to the front of the buildings and all of this.
It was a
As
grant,
far-
yeah.
Yes, as far as the upkeep for that, does this fall under that type of,
I don't believe so. I mean, the grant was a wonderful thing, and a lot of people put up a lot of private funds, and it's a wonderful thing, and it's still looking good, but Mr. Morgan does, you know,
it is starting to show wear on
Yeah,
several
well,
spots.
Here's the deal, that we have a historic downtown, a downtown historic district in
HBD.
Blackstone, which overlays the old historic district, which encompasses ViewMac and the cemetery and portions of college. And there's a larger and broader historic district, and that was intended back in the late 80s, early 90s, to allow people to apply for tax credits and things and incentives so they could upgrade houses and do all that sort of thing. There was no mandated portion to it. The downtown historic district that was adopted, I think in 2007, when the town underwent the whole renovation project, it does have requirements and DBI review and all those kinds of things for signs and facades and all that sort of thing. We've had our share of sign discussions and that sort of thing. There hadn't been a huge amount of discussion on it, but I think as we went through it at one point, DBI was to advise us when certain things were, and then the enforcement side, I think, followed back to the town, that we actually are the ones that are,
Have we advised, has DBI advised recently of any?
I think we've talked about signs.
Okay.
Yeah, and, you know, we had a big hall with the one sign, and, but as far as maintenance, fixing facades or putting up boards or, you know, repairing awnings, I don't have a list or a comprehensive list.
Can we start that just before things start getting,
well, I'm gonna come right out and say, and I asked Zach this, and I understand, Zach, first of all, I want to commend you. You have really reactivated and got DBI's profile back to where I believe it should be. You're doing a heck of a job in all aspects, and you're very good at taking input and criticism we discussed today. And I don't mean to pick on they may even be in the audience, on the vape shop. One of the, Bill and Betty Wright Armbruster, who were instrumental in getting the historic business district, in the historic district in 1990, the big thing was they didn't want to be dictators about what you can do and be big government, but one of the things that they were trying to achieve was consistency of signage. And one of the things that the Main Street organization is the signs that come out and hang over the sidewalks, they really produce visual clutter. So I was surprised, but I understand why, since the fallout we had in April with the gun shop sign, the vape shop. You know, that sign is kind of sticking out over the sidewalk, vapes, exclamation point, not picking on the business. It's a viable business, and thanks for the investment in Blackstone. But I think we need to get back, as Mr. Morgan said, to some semblance of order. And I know DBI feels like it's been once bitten, twice shy with the council, you know, on the Tim Bauer sign. I don't mind saying Tim's name because I talked to him quite a bit. But I do think we do need to get back to some oversight on the signage. That's my input. What do you say? Mr. Nash, you were going to say something.
No, you're good. I mean, I think Lonnie's talking about boards falling off of certain.
Right, I mean, the sign up here looks great, in the whole, that couldn't get any better. But I'm talking about, you're gonna throw up all these signs and everything else, but at the same time, buildings are starting to look really weathered again in spots. So if you're gonna promote something, let's promote it and have it looking good at the same time.
And we do have programs and initiatives that help these business owners fund those improvements, but at the end of the day, it is ultimately up to that private property or business owner to take that.
Come to you.
Right.
Members of council, what is your pleasure on the biennial MOU?
I'll make a motion that we support.
I second.
Ms. Hasbrook has moved. Mr. Morgan has seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Ladies and gentlemen, I have taken input received from council. I've also thrown one or two of my little ideas as well. I'm going to read out loud a proposed list of goals for 2019 and beyond. Council, you can discuss them if you'd like. My idea was y'all will weigh on these goals, which are your own. They came from y'all. And I'm going to read, there are 19 of them, which is a lot of goals. And I think the list, if whatever council approves, can certainly be less wordy than what I've written. But I'm just going to read these out loud, and I know some of you have strong opinions about some of these goals. Don't think for a minute that your goal, because it's read first or last, this is just me going through comments made by council members. So I'm going to read them in order. But again, they're all equally important, so don't assign any motives to the goals. Number 1, resolve the future of the town-owned armory. Number 2, and this came from Mr. Miller, increase governmental transparency through timely, accurate, responsible use of social media and all other forms of communication available at the town's disposal. Hold executive sessions only when absolutely necessary. Number 3, begin active, systematic enforcement of the town's rental property maintenance ordinance. Number 4, seek assistance from the state and federal government with cooperation from other localities to bring broadband internet access to Blackstone and surrounding areas. Number 5, this came from Mr. Nash. Continue to eliminate blight at the old Blackstone High and Intermediate School property. Increase local opportunities there for recreation, health, and fitness. And complete the safe access to school sidewalk and lighting project. That is going to be done. But sometimes you put things on a list just to make sure you do them, and it's nice to be able to say we're going to check that one off. Number 6, from Mr. Morgan. Hold a financial workshop at least once annually outside of the budget schedule so council members can closely monitor the town's financial status. This includes debt, revenues, and expenses. Number 7, from me. He's been going to a lot of meetings lately. Improve the appearance of all town-owned properties and regularly act on attainable recommendations from the town's Volunteer Beautification Committee. I will have a sidebar list to submit at the December meeting of things that Jennifer Daniel and I have been to the meeting. Very easy to accomplish, very little money involved. Hold an annual retreat. This is from Ms. Hasbrook. Hold an annual retreat outside of town so officials can have more time to discuss short-term and long-term issues more in depth. Number 9, from Council President Thompson. Include in every budget an annual sidewalk replacement / new sidewalk construction schedule. Number 10, several people here as well in the audience I've discussed with us. This is a big one. Seriously study and consider adoption of the Virginia Property Maintenance Code to more aggressively eliminate blight in residential areas. Sidebar on that is there are many properties in town that are unsightly, but they're in full compliance with our regulations. If they don't have weeds over 8 inches, and they're in compliance. This would be a big step for this town. But I'm increasingly of the opinion that, sadly, More and more property owners are taking less pride in the appearance of their properties. Some live here, many do not. Number 11, this is from Mr. Morgan. Consider hiring a town director of human resources to assist with employee scheduling and benefits and to ensure continued positive employee morale. Number 12, more aggressively use the town's bus system, BABS, to improve access to community events, including festivals, grand illumination, local elections, Christmas light tours, etc. We have the bus system. We're already paying for it. We need to use it more. I think that came from several people, including Ms. Hasbrook and Mr. Morgan. Number 13, continue efforts to bring three-phase electricity to the town's industrial park and better market that acreage throughout Virginia and the East Coast. Number 14, something we've kind of been doing, but we don't do it regularly enough, in my opinion. Annually evaluate the town manager and, conversely, receive input from the manager on the performance and direction of the council and the mayor. Number 15, big issue for yours truly. I put this on there. Consider hiring full-time or part-time animal control officer to protect residents and our pets from stray and feral animals. 2 days in a row. This week, Monday and Tuesday, I called Nottoway about looked like a non-aggressive dog, but it's a large pit bull mix, black with a white chest, at 5th and Brunswick one day, 5th and Lunenburg the next. Called, sat there, watched it as long as I could. I had to get to work. The dog is still at large.
He's in my front yard when I left.
He's owned by someone on 5th Street whose excuse is he keeps jumping the fence. Well, it's time to write some tickets.
Exactly.
Number 16, just four more, folks. Develop a reasonable, attainable tourism plan that includes a carriage museum, Swartz Tavern, and our historic downtown. We're going to get on that in January, and it may not be a grandiose plan. It may be an aggressive plan, but we don't have a plan, and that's on me. This is on all of us, too. Complete and regularly update the town's comprehensive plan. I know I'm going to get some nods in the audience on that. I think our last plan dates from what, it's 92? When was our last, or 2002? Our current comprehensive plan is dated when? Is it 2002?
2000,
Okay, all right. Last two, folks, I'm sorry, but I think it's important. And again, don't think that the order means first is best and last is worst. Number 18, regularly codify and update the town's ordinances and ensure that new ordinances that you adopt and the amendments to these ordinances that you adopt are posted on the town's website on the town code link. There are several times people ask me a question, and I'll say it's on, and I'll show them the link to the town ordinance, but I know in my heart, I'm like, I think it's been updated since then, and I honestly have forgotten. And I know we're in the process of doing that, and that's no reflection on our clerk, it's just communicated.
We need to do it this spring. We
Correct.
definitely need to do it.
And last but certainly not least, work with Bon Secours or other healthcare providers to expand medical access and emergency treatment after hours closer to home for our local residents. I offer that to the council for improvement. One goal I failed to put on here, and I want to, number 20, annually holding an event for our veterans, i.e. Veterans Day, as we did this past November 11th, which is one of the big, it was in my 30 years back in Blackstone, the biggest event we've had for veterans. So that would be number 20. Continue a Veterans Day service. The veterans themselves do Memorial Day. I feel like, it's almost, to me, it's a travesty to watch these older veterans have to go set up chairs and, they're the ones who did the sacrifice. So anyway, my hope is that council will adopt something maybe December 17th or maybe we'll have a special meeting in early January. But I tried to take your suggestions and include them, and I may have missed some. If I did, I'm sorry. But like, for example, Sheila, I think we talked about the old school property, and you talk about something for the kids, increase recreational opportunities over there. So that was one of yours as well. Mr. Mitchell.
I noticed when I came into town that the signs out on the highway, it don't tell what's in Blackstone,
You mean the billboards or?
the billboard.
We've been through that. VDOT makes the businesses pay to have their names on there.
Yeah.
That's why McDonald's and Hardee's is on there, because they paid for it.
Well, I was thinking about the things you want to see, like in museums, stuff like that, that's not on there.
I don't believe so. I know that Jack Hodge used to work for the town, was able to get VDOT to maybe tweak some of its harsh regulations on, we've got, at least now when you take the exit that a McDonald's is 1.7 miles away. Because it used to just be, But like I said, when you come in off 460 and you've got a baby crying in the back seat, and you're like, honey, is this really a town here? And you drive, you look at, it's true. And that's why one of Larry's plans years ago, and it would be costly, there was actual talk of going antique light posts from 460 with some crepe myrtles all the way down Northwest Avenue.
Kind of guiding them.
Just to kind of say, keep coming, folks, have patience, we're here. But
If people wanna do it, like got business, they wanna put a sign out there, they can do it, or they go through.
No, you gotta go through
you go
VDOT.
through VDOT, and the way the rules are, only the big business can afford it. It's like $2,000 a year. It's something, as usual, But anyway, I offer those folks in a spirit of cooperation. They're your goals, and I mean, I think there's consensus there. I don't think there's anything on that, the Armory's on there. We all know that's been sort of a hot topic. It says resolve it, and I'm convinced, after the last two council meetings, this council is going to resolve it. It may not be favorable for everybody, but this council is going to do it. If no comments, we'll go on to Christmas luncheon.
We have a Christmas luncheon scheduled, December 20th. All the council people obviously are invited at 1 o'clock at the town shop on Church Street. In the past, we've not been closing the doors to town hall. Then we were just kind of rotating people in and out. The ladies had asked this year if everybody could attend. And if we're going to close, if council is agreeable, then we will close for now.
Is there, I think you would like a motion, Ms. Thompson?
Agreeable to you guys.
Mr. Jones, a second, Ms. Thompson's motion. Any discussion? That is Thursday, December 20th, from 1 to 2. So lunch is from 1 to 2.
Yeah, we figured from 12 to 1 is gonna be busy, probably people on the
Smart.
lunch break, so 1 to 2 might be less busy.
Excellent. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. And last on this list, next to a holiday toy drive, which the staff commend y'all.
Want to let the public know that we are doing a holiday toy drive here if y'all want to contribute.
I've got something trying to find the right thing for a local kid. But the deadline is December 14th, which is next Friday, a week from Friday.
Heading this up.
Thank y'all. This is good for the community, and it's great PR as well as a win-win for everybody.
You said December 14th is last day.
You want an unwrapped gift, right?
Correct.
Okay. Very good.
Where do we take the toys, Joey?
Come on to the town office. You can either go over here or go to in here. Either way.
The DMV side or the main, this side, whatever.
We had a closed session scheduled. I spoke with one of my colleagues here. I'm going to be very careful in my choice of words. There has been some inaccurate information in the community regarding a personnel matter. That's all I'm going to say at this time. I believe, you correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Manager, that it might be better discussed with a public statement perhaps on December 17th.
Yeah, I think, and speaking with one of the councilmen tonight too, if you choose to speak about it tonight, we can. If you want to wait till the 17th when additional results are made available, then we can do that.
I don't like to discuss any personnel matter in public, but when citizens receive misinformation and it starts spreading, I think with some discretion, I think this body should issue a statement, but I think tonight would be premature.
I think they receive inaccurate information all the time, but I don't think we should respond until we have accurate information in hand to where we can show that the mistake was
I
made.
don't
Correct.
think we should respond tonight.
I agree.
I don't think we should respond tonight.
Everybody feel comfortable with that? I think everyone knows what we're talking about. Very good. Is anyone in the audience have anything they'd like to say before we go to?
Yeah, we do.
Oh, huh?
We talked about.
Yeah, I promise you, I told you this weekend. Mr. Osborne?
Mayor, I just want to touch base, because I know y'all are supposed to visit the Armory, and I just want to come by, invite each one of y'all personally to come by. Please come down. I've got Brian Green here tonight. He's an engineer with Commonwealth Architects. He did a study on the Armory. He knows more about the building than anybody, as far as I know. And we've got hot, Kathy Luton fixing hot apple cider.
Very good.
It's not spiked, but please come by whenever y'all can. I know y'all supposed to.
It's not Spike.
It's not spiked, I'm sorry.
I thought you wanted us to come.
Holiday
We
cheer.
got it set up, you can come in,
Go back and spike it up.
everybody can see
They got time
everything at
for it.
once. I walk through the building, I've got packets for y'all, you can go home.
Mr. Osborne, I appreciate you coming. I want to make sure also, I want everybody to hear this, and I want council to be in one accord. It's my understanding that this council did agree to visit the Armory, to look and see the progress that's been made by your volunteers, which has been a wonderful thing. My idea tonight is the council, we are to go and look. If members of council or this mayor have questions, we have the opportunity to ask them. As far as it being it's not a public hearing.
No, sir, it's not. We invite, open the building like it was an open building, and we've had a few people just come by and look, and that's all, okay?
Right,
But
right.
And we do have a place for council to sit if you'd like to sit tonight, and place for people to sit down, but you don't have to. But I feel like I'd always should have a table sit if you want to sit down.
Procedurally, what I'm gonna have to do is when we decide to leave here, we will take what's called a recess. I will probably carry this with me, believe it or not, because there'll need to be a formal adjournment. And I want to make sure members of council are okay with what I just outlined. Any concerns, or just want to make sure we're on the same page?
It's just an observation, it's not a question
We've asked
bombardment.
questions. I've got every inch of the building opened up, we've got all the lights working, there's nothing hidden.
Do you have a handout or anything
A
about,
handout for each person to take home tonight and read, and it's got everything they need, okay? All right. Only I'm trying to do is get everybody on the same page, everybody see your community center that you've had since 1936. So,
excellent, thank you. And one thing, I spoke to Mr. Miller over the weekend, and I meant to speak to more of y'all, and I just want to throw this out there. One of the issues, Mr. Osmond, that had caused some anxiety at our last meetings was the youth basketball practices, which are going to start around like January 9th. And
that's not gonna happen this year. I was gonna update y'all when you get over there. I talked to Bill Quick today. As you know, the building's gotta have lead abatement.
Right.
The buildings, we found that's gotta be painted.
I thought it might be a good idea for council, because council voted to allow basketball. I thought it might be a decent idea tonight to vote while we're here to just take that off the table and
I'd like
ease.
to do that because it's gonna take us probably at least 6 months to have it done and ready. Okay?
Members of council, you've heard, what's your pleasure on that?
I'd like to put a motion on the table that we scratch basketball for this year.
Okay, is there a second to Mr. Miller's motion?
Second.
We'll give the second to Ms. Hasbrook. Any further discussion? And I apologize to my colleagues. I meant for that to go out before tonight, but I figured it wouldn't be a big deal. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
I'll see y'all in a month.
I'm now going to adjourn this meeting, not adjourn, recess this meeting at 6:27, and we will resume at the Armory. And we welcome everybody to join us. It's